Hi, welcome. Grandma Honey here, and I have another story for you. This one's called Benjamin's Box. It's written by Melody Carlson, and it's illustrated by Jack Stockman. All right, let's get started. Long ago, in the faraway land of Palestine, there lived a boy named Benjamin. His small, humble home was nestled into a wall of other houses, almost hidden on a narrow back street in the bustling city of Jerusalem. Benjamin loved Jerusalem because God's temple was there. But more than that, Benjamin loved God. His grandfather had taught him many things about God when he was just a tiny boy. Benjamin talked to God a lot. He whispered prayers each night at sunset, and in the morning he always gave thanks for the new day. Benjamin's parents worked hard weaving and selling cloth, but their family was still quite poor. So Benjamin helped out by taking odd jobs around the city, and everyone in Jerusalem seemed to know Benjamin. They could always count on him to be honest and work hard. One bright morning, Benjamin sat outside in the sunshine, and in his hands was a wooden box. "Hi, Benjamin," called his friend Eli. "What you got?" "Oh, it's my treasure box," said Benjamin. "My grandfather gave it to me before he died last year. He said it was very, very special." Eli opened it and looked in. "Well, there's nothing in it except for some old straw. How can this be a treasure box?" Benjamin shrugged. "I don't have any real treasures yet, but my grandfather said this straw came from the bed of a baby who was born in a stable. My grandfather was a shepherd then, and he said the baby would grow up to be a king." "Well, why would a king be born in a stable with cows and donkeys?" Eli laughed and closed the box. "I heard some sort of a king is coming today. His name is Jesus. You want to come to the city gate and watch for him?" "Sure. My grandfather took me to hear a man called Jesus once. I like to listen to him." Crowds were already lining the street. Some people cut palm branches from trees and handed them around, and others laid garments on the street like a carpet. "Wow," said Benjamin. "He must be a king." The two boys squeezed through the throng just as the donkey entered the gate. "Huh, that's him!" Benjamin pointed the man on the donkey. "That's Jesus! Hosanna! Hosanna!" cheered the crowd as they waved their palm branches into the air. "Hail to our new king!" yelled an old man beside Benjamin. "Well, why does a king ride an ordinary donkey?" asked Benjamin. The old man turned. "It means that he comes in peace. Jesus is come to set us free. Hail, King Jesus!" Benjamin looked into Jesus' face, and as he drew near, Jesus smiled back. It was as if they were friends. The donkey plodded along, and Benjamin followed, pushing through the crowd to keep up. And at last, as he drew close enough to pet the donkey, a small tuft of hair came off in his hand. And that night, Benjamin placed the bit of donkey fur into his treasure box. In the next days, Benjamin and Eli went to hear Jesus whenever they could. One day as they waited, Eli whispered, "The priests have offered money for someone to betray Jesus." "Why?" asked Benjamin. "What has he done? He only speaks the truth. They should listen to him." "Well, the priests are jealous of him. They want Jesus to stop teaching," said Eli. "Well, someone should warn Jesus," declared Benjamin. "I'm not afraid. I'll go." And he pushed through the crowd until he reached one of Jesus' friends. He tugged on the man's sleeve. "Excuse me, sir, are you with Jesus?" "Yes, I am," the man answered. "Oh, please, I need to warn Jesus. He's in danger. The priests are offering a bribe to betray him. You must tell. Shh, said the man. Do not repeat this. I'll take care of it. And he slipped a coin into Benjamin's hand. Well, thank you, kind sir. What is your name? Judas Iscariot, said the man as he turned away. And that night, Benjamin tucked the shiny denarius into his treasure box. The next day, Benjamin was asked to help his aunt get ready for some unexpected guests. They would be coming for Passover dinner. He went right to work carrying water jugs. Did you hear? The guest of honor is Jesus, said a servant girl, and Benjamin's eyes opened wide. Imagine, to serve such an important man. He must work hard and do his very best. Two of Jesus' friends came to help, and Benjamin listened as they talked of Jesus. Oh, they loved him so much. Soon Jesus arrived, and the supper began. If Benjamin listened carefully, he could hear some of their words. But what did Jesus mean when he said that the wine was like his blood, which would be spilled, and the bread was to be broken like his body? That made no sense. And then Jesus said that someone would betray him. Benjamin smiled. He wasn't worried. He knew that Judas would prevent this. And after supper, Benjamin found a broken cup, and he saved it to remember the night when he served Jesus. Later, Jesus and his friends left to pray. Benjamin wanted to pray too, and he followed at a distance, watching as they finally stopped in a garden. Benjamin sat beneath an olive tree and broke off a twig. He couldn't hear Jesus, but he knew that he was praying. Benjamin prayed too, and as he prayed, he rubbed the twig between his hands. And before long, his eyelids grew heavy, and he soon fell asleep. Loud yelling startled Benjamin, and he leaped up in time to see soldiers taking Jesus away. "Stop!" he cried. "You can't take him. He hasn't done anything." "Shh, boy," said one of Jesus' friends, and he was holding Benjamin back. "What's wrong?" demanded Benjamin. "Why are they taking him?" "They want to question him." Benjamin pulled away. "Why didn't you stop them?" But the man just shook his head and walked away. All of Jesus' friends were gone now. Benjamin saw the smooth twig in his hand. "Dear God, please take care of my friend Jesus," he prayed as he walked. And at home, he placed the broken cup and the twig in his box. "Benjamin, did you hear the news?" asked Eli in the next morning. "They've locked Jesus up. Everyone says that Judas Iscariot's got a bunch of money to betray him." Benjamin gasped. He had told Judas about the bribe. Maybe this was his fault. He said goodbye to Eli and wandered through the city. Oh, but what could he do? Was there any way to help? Sounds of shouting made him stop, and he turned to see an angry crowd. "Oh, that Jesus deserved that beating," snarled an old man. "That heretic claims to be God's son." He should be stoned," yelled another, shaking his fist. "What's going on?" asked Benjamin. "Did they hurt Jesus?" "What do you know about this Jesus?" demanded the old man. And they all turned and stared at Benjamin with angry eyes. No, nothing," he stammered. His gaze dropped to the ground where he noticed a small strip of leather. He picked it up. It was from the whips used by the soldiers, and it was wet with blood. He tucked it in his tunic and slipped away. Why would anyone beat Jesus? Benjamin continued to walk. If only he could make them release Jesus. But what could a small boy do? He heard loud cries as another crowd gathered at the end of the street. "Hail, King of the Jews!" yelled a soldier as Benjamin pushed his way past men and women. And there stood Jesus. Benjamin looked into Jesus' eyes as the Roman soldiers threw a shabby robe over his beaten back. He expected to see hatred, but instead he saw only love. Just then, a soldier shoved a crown of thorns onto Jesus' head, and another struck him with a stick. Benjamin's eyes filled with tears. Why were they doing this? A few days ago, everyone had called Jesus a king when he entered into Jerusalem. Now, it seemed that they all hated him. Benjamin squatted down and buried his head in his hands. "Please, God," he prayed over and over, "please make them stop." And when he finally opened his eyes, the crowd had moved along, and Jesus was gone. He walked over to where they had scorned his friend, and he picked up a sharp thorn that was broken from that awful crown. He ran home. His parents paused to hear his story and then sadly shook their heads and returned to their work. Benjamin placed the thorn in the leather strip in his box and cried. "Benjamin," called Eli, "have you heard? Jesus is to be crucified." "No," cried Benjamin. "He's done nothing to deserve that." Eli frowned. "My father says that only the worst criminals are put to death on a cross." Benjamin went inside and sat in a dark corner of his house. He did not want to talk or even think about this sad news. But in his mind, he could still see the evil men hurting Jesus. "I must go," he finally said aloud. "If this is partly my fault, I can at least be there. I can pray for him." "Where are you going?" asked his mother as he opened the door. To help a friend," he said. She nodded and touched his cheek. And as Benjamin climbed the hill, he found a large spike. It was like those used by the Romans to nail criminals to crosses. He tucked it in his tunic and continued on. 3 crosses stood at the top, but he could not force his eyes to look upon his friend. He noticed a small group of people that were apart from the larger crowd, and he knew they were Jesus' dearest friends. He sat near them, and he bowed to pray, but the only words that came were, "I'm sorry, God. I'm so sorry." Benjamin watched as soldiers gambled for Jesus' clothes. He tried to shut his ears to hear their cruel remarks. And finally, he forced himself to look up. Benjamin looked into Jesus' eyes and saw such sorrow and pain that it cut him to his heart. But he also saw love. And like before, Jesus looked right at Benjamin. Surely this was his way of saying that all would be well. Perhaps he would even do a miracle. But instead, the sky turned dark and Jesus cried out, "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." And the ground shook and Jesus breathed his last breath. And Benjamin was stunned. Jesus was dead. And as if in a dream, Benjamin heard the people move about. He saw a soldier pierce his friend's side with a spear. People hurried to take down crosses and bodies before the Sabbath began. And soon they were gone, and he was all alone. He picked up a stone that the soldiers had gambled with, and he looked up at the dark sky. Oh, why had God allowed it? Later that night, he opened his treasure box and placed the nail and the gambling stone inside. And he looked at his collection. It seemed so valuable when he believed that Jesus was the king. But now the strange items only filled him with unbearable sadness. "Benjamin," called Eli the next morning, "come hear the news." Benjamin stuck his head out the window and rubbed his sleepy eyes. "They posted guards at Jesus' tomb," explained Eli. "Some say that Jesus will return to life." Benjamin perked up. "My grandfather told me that Jesus brought some people back from the dead." "Well, maybe it'll happen again," said Eli. "But the soldiers say they're making sure that people don't steal the body." And quickly Benjamin dressed and raced to the tomb. Could it be? Could Jesus have returned to life? Oh, how he hoped so. But the huge stone remained in place, and the guards blocked the tomb. With dark, scowling faces, they told him to leave at once. And as Benjamin walked slowly down the hill, he noticed a bit of white cloth hanging from a small branch. He plucked it off and rubbed it between his fingers. His parents wove cloth like this for burials. "Jesus is dead," he told himself as he continued toward home. And that night he sadly placed the cloth in his box. This would surely be the last thing to remember his friend by. He tried to pray, but no words came, and he wondered if God even listened. Early the next morning, Benjamin went to the market for his mother. He used to enjoy the crowds in the city, but now they only reminded him of how everyone had turned against Jesus. He shuffled along without looking up. "It's a miracle!" squealed a girl, and Benjamin stopped in his tracks and listened. "Jesus is risen from the dead! The stone's been moved!" Benjamin turned and ran from the market and up towards the tomb. Could it possibly be true? Could Jesus have risen from the grave? In his heart, he believed it could be. It must be. And he ran even faster. And sure enough, the stone was rolled away. He fell to his knees and thanked God. And when he stood, he picked up a sharp piece of broken rock. It must have crumbled from the huge stone. And with a joyful heart, he marched back down to town. Jesus was alive. And in the market, he met a woman who was a friend of Jesus. "I know the good news," he said. "Jesus is alive." "Yes," she smiled. "It's as the prophet said. On the third day, he'll rise. Some of us have even seen him." And Benjamin ran home and told his parents. He placed the stone in the box. Oh, what a treasure he had now! And during the next few days, Benjamin and Eli listened as the disciples shared about how Jesus had appeared to them in various places. Jesus said that all of this came to pass just so forgiveness could be preached to all nations, beginning right here in Jerusalem, explained a disciple. He said that now that we saw all these things, now we can go out and tell others the good news of his forgiveness. Benjamin smiled. Now he understood that Jesus had forgiven him too. And he wanted to share the good news. So he ran home and he got his treasure box and he went out into the streets and gathered all of his friends. "Inside this box," he explained, "is a great treasure." And the children drew closer and listened with excitement. And one by one, Benjamin took out each piece. And he explained how he got it and what it all meant. "And so, you see," he said as he closed the box and looked into their faces, The treasure is really Jesus. Because of what Jesus did on the cross, we can all be forgiven by God the Father. And they all cheered and begged him to tell the story again. The end. And that's our story for today, Benjamin's box. Bye-bye for now, and be blessed.